support her son, single mother accepts to bathe a millionaire, and the unexpected happens. Before we begin the story, comment below and tell us from which city you're watching. Enjoy the story, everyone. Chloe had always been a fighter, but in recent months, even her strength was running thin. At 19, she faced the world with Lucas in her arms. Now, with Lucas at 6 years old, his needs were only growing, and so were the bills. Unemployed and without prospects, she spent her nights holding back tears and her mornings searching for hope in places where none seemed to exist. But on that day, something different happened. On the small kitchen table, next to stale bread, lay a piece of paper her neighbor had left earlier. Chloe held the ad with trembling fingers, reading and rereading every word as if it were a winning lottery ticket. Private caregiver for high-end residents, demanding work, excellent salary, seeking discretion and commitment. For a moment, her heart skipped a beat. What did demanding mean? Could someone like her, with a simple life full of struggles, stand a chance? But the excellent salary, that meant a better school for Lucas, a house with space for him to play, and nights where she wouldn't have to choose between paying the electricity or putting food on the table. Chloe took a deep breath. This could be the turning point she'd been hoping for, or the beginning of a new challenge that would change everything. The next morning, Chloe arrived at the mansion. The imposing iron gate opened, revealing a garden so pristine it felt otherworldly. A housekeeper named Lucy greeted her at the door with a polite smile. "Welcome. I'll take you to Mr. Foster, but I must warn you, he's demanding and direct. Just be honest." Chloe nodded, her hands clammy as she walked through the silent hallways. When Lucy opened the office door, Chloe saw Arthur Foster for the first time. He was in a wheelchair, impeccably dressed in a suit, but what stood out were his eyes, cold, analytical, and almost challenging. "Are you the candidate?" he asked bluntly. "Yes, sir," Chloe replied, trying to sound confident. Arthur tilted his head slightly. "Why do you want this job?" Chloe took a deep breath. "I'm a single mother. I want to secure a better future for my son, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes." Arthur was silent for a few seconds that felt like an eternity. Then, with a brief motion, he turned his wheelchair. "Start tomorrow. Don't disappoint me." That night, as Chloe tucked Lucas into bed, she felt a mix of relief and anxiety. This job could change everything, but something about Arthur's gaze made her think there was far more to this mansion than met the eye. The next day, Chloe arrived for her first day of work. Lucy greeted her again, this time with less formality, but the same efficiency. "Follow me. I'll explain your duties along the way." As they walked through the wide, silent hallways, Lucy spoke clearly. "Mr. Arthur Foster has a very specific routine. Your main responsibility will be assisting him with bathing and dressing. He prefers everything to be quick and efficient. One important note, he doesn't like forced pleasantries. Stay professional." Chloe swallowed hard. Lucy's tone was reassuring, but it didn't erase Arthur's words from the day before. "Don't disappoint me." Those words echoed in her mind like a warning. In the master bathroom, Chloe noticed the assistive equipment adapted for Arthur. There were side rails, a special shower bench, and a small table full of expensive-looking products. Before she could process everything, the door opened, and Arthur entered, expertly maneuvering his wheelchair. "Let's get started. I don't have all day," he said curtly, not even glancing at her. Chloe quickly nodded. "Yes, sir." She began adjusting the bench so he could transfer from the wheelchair. Despite her determination, she couldn't help but notice the scars on his hands as he gripped the rails tightly. He didn't ask for help, but his body spoke volumes. Chloe stood nearby, ready to assist if necessary. "Don't treat me like an invalid," Arthur said suddenly, breaking the silence. "That's not what I'm doing," Chloe replied quickly, trying to keep her voice calm. "I just want to ensure your safety." Arthur scoffed but didn't respond. The rest of the bath continued in awkward silence, broken only by the sound of running water. As she soaped his shoulders, Chloe noticed a deep, jagged scar running down his back. She hesitated for a moment but decided not to ask questions. Not yet. After helping Arthur get dressed, Chloe began tidying up the bathroom. He watched her from the corner of his eye, as if trying to figure her out. "You seem to be handling this well," he remarked, his tone sounding more like a test than a compliment. "I've been through tougher things," Chloe replied honestly, but without elaborating. Arthur didn't press further. He simply turned his wheelchair toward the door and left the room without another word. The rest of the day was a mix of instructions from Lucy and moments where Chloe had to deal directly with Arthur. He wasn't exactly rude, but there was something about his demeanor that made it clear he was always in control. Even so, Chloe noticed small details that contradicted his exterior. The way he gripped the armrests of his wheelchair when someone got too close, how he averted his gaze whenever the conversation touched on something personal. At lunch, Chloe met Evelyn for the first time. She entered the dining room with light steps, carrying an air of superiority. Her expensive dress, distinctive perfume, and cold gaze made it clear she wasn't someone easy to please. "So you're the new caregiver?" Evelyn said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Yes, I'm Chloe," she replied, keeping her composure. Evelyn didn't respond immediately. She let out a short laugh before turning to Arthur. "I hope you don't give her too much trouble. She seems fragile." Arthur didn't react, but Chloe noticed his jaw tighten slightly. The tension in the room was palpable. Evelyn seemed to enjoy provoking, and Chloe realized she'd need to tread carefully around her. Later, while Chloe was tidying up the rooms, Lucas called from the neighbor's phone. His cheerful voice was the only relief in her tense day. "Mom, how was work? Is the house big?" he asked excitedly. "It's different, sweetheart, but I'm okay. Did you eat properly with Aina?" "Yes, but I wish you were here." Chloe's heart tightened, but she kept her voice light. "I do too, my love, but I'm doing this for us. Now make sure to go to bed early, okay?" After hanging up, Chloe stared at the phone for a few minutes. Working at the mansion was a completely different world from what she was used to, and being away from Lucas made it even harder. At the end of the day, Lucy stopped to talk to Chloe in the kitchen. "You did well today. Mr. Foster didn't complain, which is a good sign." "He seems complicated," Chloe admitted. Lucy let out a short laugh. "That's a compliment compared to how he was at the beginning. The accident changed everything. He lost more than just his mobility. He lost his trust in people." Before Chloe could ask more, Arthur appeared in the kitchen doorway. He didn't say anything, but his presence seemed to fill the space. "I'll need you early tomorrow," he said, looking directly at Chloe. "Be punctual." "Of course, sir," she replied, trying not to show her exhaustion. When he left, Lucy patted Chloe's shoulder. "You'll be fine. He just needs time." The next morning started early. Chloe arrived at the mansion before sunrise, meeting Lucy in the kitchen as she prepared a hot cup of tea. "Are you getting used to the routine?" Lucy asked, handing her a mug. "I'm learning, but he's complicated," Chloe said, taking a sip of tea while searching for the right word to describe Arthur. Lucy laughed. "Complicated is the nicest term I've heard, but he wasn't like this before the accident. Not entirely." Before Chloe could ask more, a deep sound echoed down the hall. Arthur was lightly tapping on the table in the next room, signaling he needed something. "Time to get started," Lucy said, encouraging Chloe with a nod. Entering the living room, Chloe found Arthur staring out the window, his eyes fixed on the pristine gardens. He seemed lost in thought, but the tension in his shoulders showed he was always on alert. "I'm ready to assist you, sir," Chloe said, keeping her tone neutral. Arthur turned his wheelchair toward her and raised an eyebrow. "Let's see how long you can say that with conviction." Chloe ignored the comment, walking to the kitchen to fetch his morning medications. On her way, she sensed someone behind her. Turning around, she found Evelyn standing in the hallway. "Good morning," Evelyn said with a smile that dripped with sarcasm. "I hope you're enjoying the job. It's not for everyone." "It's challenging but necessary," Chloe replied politely. Evelyn stepped closer, narrowing her eyes. "You know you can be replaced at any moment. Don't forget that." The veiled threat lingered in the air. Chloe stayed silent and returned to her task, feeling Evelyn's gaze following her until she disappeared down the hall. The day carried on with routine tasks and the constant presence of Arthur, who seemed to test Chloe at every opportunity. During the bath, he broke the silence with an unexpected question. "Why are you really here?" Chloe paused for a moment. "I've told you before, I want to secure a better future for my son." Arthur let out a short, almost bitter laugh. "It's always the same story. Someone's always doing something for someone else, but in the end, it's always for themselves." Chloe felt the coldness in his words, but didn't back down. Maybe it's hard for you to believe that, but not everyone is the same. Arthur stared at her for a moment before looking away. Chloe realized that behind his rigid demeanor, there was more than bitterness. There was pain, a story he guarded fiercely. Later, while tidying Arthur's room, Chloe came across a box of old photos. One photo caught her attention. Arthur standing and smiling next to a woman she recognized as Evelyn. They seemed happy, but something about her smile looked artificial, like it was only for the camera. Before she could put the photo back, Arthur appeared at the door. "Do you always go through other people's things?" "I was just—" Chloe began, but Arthur raised a hand, cutting her off. "It doesn't matter. You want to know what happened, don't you? Everyone does. They look at me and see a mystery waiting to be solved." Chloe hesitated. She hadn't meant to invade his privacy, but the accusation in his voice made her feel like she had crossed a line. "If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. You don't owe anyone an explanation," she said calmly, putting the photo back in the box. Arthur was silent for a moment before murmuring, "That photo was taken before the accident, before everything fell apart." He turned and left, leaving Chloe with more questions than answers. At lunchtime, Lucas called again. His cheerful voice was the highlight of Chloe's day. "Mom, have you seen the garden? Is it pretty?" "It's beautiful, sweetheart. You'd love it. Maybe one day I can take you here." Lucas giggled. "What about the man in the chair? Is he nice?" Chloe thought for a moment before answering. "He's different, but I'm learning how to manage." After hanging up, Chloe felt a wave of longing for Lucas. The job was demanding, but she reminded herself she was doing it for him. Later, while organizing the kitchen cabinets, Lucy appeared with a package in her hands. "This was delivered for you." Chloe opened the package and found an anonymous note. The words were simple but filled with malice. "Watch your step." A chill ran down her spine. Who could have sent it? Evelyn immediately came to mind, but Chloe knew she couldn't accuse anyone without proof. She showed the note to Lucy, who looked visibly concerned. "That's strange. I'll look into it, but be careful, Chloe. There are a lot of people here who don't like change." At the end of the day, Chloe was exhausted but determined. During her final task, she saw Arthur sitting alone in the library, staring at an open book he didn't seem to be reading. "Do you need anything, sir?" He looked up at her, appearing more tired than usual. "You always ask that. Don't you get tired of trying to help?" "It's my job," Chloe replied, but her voice carried more sincerity than she intended. Arthur observed her for a moment before saying something that surprised her. "Maybe you're not like the others. Maybe." It was the first time Chloe saw something close to openness in him. And for the first time, she felt that maybe she could make a difference. The next day dawned gray, with a light rain covering the mansion's gardens. Chloe was determined to set aside the mystery of the note and focus on her work. That morning, Arthur was more reserved than usual, though it didn't surprise her. He seemed like someone who lived surrounded by high walls, both physical and emotional. As she prepared the bathroom for Arthur's morning routine, she heard the sound of wheels approaching. He entered without a word, wearing his usual cold and watchful expression. "Good morning, sir," Chloe said, trying to lighten the mood. Arthur didn't respond but gestured for her to begin. Chloe was already getting used to his silence. The routine seemed like any other, until Chloe noticed something different. During the bath, Arthur avoided looking at her as usual, but his shoulders were less tense. He seemed more at ease, allowing her to work without his usual interruptions or sharp comments. "Sir," Chloe began, hesitating before continuing, "the weather today is perfect for a walk in the garden. Maybe we could." "No," he cut her off, his voice as cold as the wind outside. Chloe sighed but didn't push further. Even so, there was something different about him. Small signs only someone close enough could notice. Later, while organizing Arthur's bedroom closet, Chloe found a dusty photo album. She hesitated before opening it, but curiosity won. Inside were pictures of Arthur before the accident, standing, smiling, surrounded by friends and family. One photo in particular caught her attention. Arthur was hugging a woman with bright eyes, clearly happy. "I remember that day." Arthur's voice startled her. He was standing at the door, watching her intently. Chloe swallowed hard, quickly putting the album back in its place. "Sorry, I was just—" Don't apologize, he interrupted. That was before. A time that no longer exists. Chloe noticed the melancholy in his words. Arthur seemed lost in memories he could no longer reach. You were happy, she said, almost without thinking. Arthur laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. Happiness is overrated. What matters is control, and that's what I've lost. Maybe not entirely, Chloe replied softly. You can still choose how to face things. Arthur didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned his wheelchair and left the room. At lunch, Chloe found Evelyn at the table. She was as elegant as ever, but there was something tense in her posture. Are you enjoying the job, Chloe? Evelyn asked, her tone polite but bordering on provoking. Yes, ma'am, Chloe replied, keeping her gaze fixed on her plate. Evelyn leaned forward slightly. Arthur can be difficult. I hope you know how to handle that. He needs someone who understands their place. Chloe felt the sting in Evelyn's words but kept her composure. I do my best to fulfill my role. Evelyn smiled, seemingly satisfied with the response, but Chloe felt her discomfort grow. Evelyn's presence was a constant reminder that she needed to tread carefully. In the late afternoon, while cleaning the library, Chloe received another call from Lucas. His cheerful voice was a welcome relief in an otherwise heavy day. Mommy, I drew you today, Lucas said excitedly. Really? I can't wait to see it when I get home, Chloe replied, smiling. I love you, Mommy, he said, his sweet voice filling Chloe's heart with hope. I love you too, sweetheart. Be good for Anna. After hanging up, Chloe felt tears welling up. Lucas was her strength, but the weight of the distance between them seemed to grow heavier each day. Later, while preparing dinner, Arthur entered the kitchen. He rarely came there, and his presence caught Chloe off guard. You seem different today, he remarked, his tone almost casual. Different how? She asked, curious. Less submissive. That's good. Chloe chuckled softly. I'm not submissive. I just respect my work. Arthur looked at her for a moment, as if assessing every word she said. That's good too. Throughout the evening, Chloe noticed that Arthur seemed less resistant to interactions. He was still reserved, but there was a subtle shift in his demeanor. Perhaps he was beginning to trust her, even just a little. The next day, Chloe decided to try something new. During the usual morning bath, she asked, Have you ever considered spending time in the garden? Arthur raised an eyebrow. You're bringing that up again? I think it would be good. Fresh air can do wonders, she insisted, trying to sound casual. Arthur hesitated, but eventually gave a brief nod. Chloe seized the opportunity, and minutes later, they were in the garden, surrounded by flowers and tall trees. Arthur seemed uncomfortable at first, but gradually, Chloe noticed him relax. The gentle breeze brushed against his face as he gazed at the cloudy sky. I used to come here often, Arthur admitted, breaking the silence. Before the accident, it was my favorite place. And it still can be, Chloe replied. Nothing has been completely taken from you. You just need to rediscover what makes you feel good. Arthur didn't reply, but his hands relaxed on the armrests of his wheelchair. Chloe knew that, although small, this moment was a victory. The morning was cold but clear, and Chloe started her day by adjusting the curtains in Arthur's room, letting sunlight flood the space. Arthur watched in silence, as he often did, his gaze distant, fixed on something beyond the windows. Good morning, sir, Chloe said, breaking the silence. Arthur looked up but didn't respond immediately. He seemed different, less rigid, as if the previous day's walk in the garden had broken an invisible barrier. Good morning, he finally replied, his tone neutral but lacking the usual coldness. Chloe saw this as a small step forward. She was learning that, with Arthur, every step was subtle and full of meaning. As Chloe adjusted Arthur's equipment for his bath, she heard a soft noise coming from the hallway. At first, she thought it was Lucy, but when she opened the door, she found Lucas. Lucas? Chloe whispered, crouching down to her son's level. What are you doing here? Anna shouldn't have let you come on your own. I wanted to see you, Mommy, Lucas replied, holding a rolled-up drawing in his small hands. Chloe sighed, feeling a mix of exasperation and tenderness. She knew he missed her, that this wasn't the time or place. Before she could discreetly take Lucas out, Arthur appeared in the hallway. He looked at the boy with a curious expression, but said nothing. Lucas, on the other hand, seemed unfazed. Are you the man in the chair? Lucas asked directly, tilting his head with childlike curiosity. Arthur frowned slightly, but replied, I am. Lucas stepped closer, holding out his drawing. I made this for my mom, but I think you might like it too. Chloe tried to intervene. Lucas, that's not appropriate. Let's go. Let him, Arthur interrupted, surprising Chloe. He took the drawing and looked at it silently. It was a simple sketch full of vibrant colors. Something about its innocence made the corners of Arthur's lips curve into an almost imperceptible smile. Do you like to draw? He asked Lucas. Yes, when I grow up I want to be an artist. My mom says I'm very creative. Lucas said enthusiastically. Arthur nodded slightly. Maybe you have something many people lose as they grow older. Chloe, still trying to process what was happening, stayed silent, observing the unexpected interaction between the two. After Anna took Lucas back, Chloe returned to Arthur's room. He was holding the drawing on his lap, looking at it as if it were a rare artifact. Your son is interesting, Arthur remarked. He's my strength, Chloe replied. Everything I do is for him. Arthur didn't respond immediately. Instead, he placed the drawing on the table next to his chair. You should have brought him sooner. He has something most people here are missing. Chloe wasn't sure how to respond. It was the first time Arthur showed something close to vulnerability, and she didn't want to interrupt the moment. Later, while Chloe was preparing dinner, Evelyn entered the kitchen. Her eyes immediately landed on Lucas's drawing, which Arthur had brought there. What's this? Evelyn asked, picking up the paper with disdain. It's just a drawing. My son made it, Chloe replied, keeping her tone calm. Evelyn let out a short laugh. Arthur does have a knack for surrounding himself with unusual people. Chloe felt her blood boil but took a deep breath. She knew Evelyn was provoking her, but she wouldn't give her the satisfaction of reacting. If you'll excuse me, I have work to do, Chloe said, turning back to her tasks. Evelyn stepped closer, her voice low and threatening. You might think you're gaining ground here, but don't fool yourself. You're temporary. I, on the other hand, am permanent. Chloe didn't respond. She simply continued working, though Evelyn's words echoed in her mind. Later that night, Chloe found Arthur in the library. He was silent, flipping through a book, but he seemed distracted. Is everything all right, sir? She asked. Do you think people can change? He asked without looking at her. Chloe hesitated. Yes, I think they can. But it takes effort, and not everyone is willing to try. Arthur finally looked up at her. And what if they don't want to change? What if they think they've already lost everything that mattered? Chloe stepped closer, sitting in the chair beside him. Maybe they just need someone to show them there's still something worth fighting for. Arthur stayed silent, but something in his eyes shifted. It was as if for the first time he was considering the possibility that not everything was lost. The next morning, Chloe found an envelope on the kitchen counter. It was another note, but this time the message was more direct. Leave while you still can. A chill ran down her spine. She showed the note to Lucy, who looked visibly concerned. This has gone too far. I'm going to talk to Arthur. He needs to know what's happening, Lucy said. No, I don't want to cause trouble, Chloe replied. Whoever it is, I won't let them intimidate me. I'm here for my son, and I'm not giving up that easily. Lucy nodded reluctantly, but Chloe knew the housekeeper shared her concerns. At the end of the day, Chloe found Arthur in the garden, a rare sight on his own. He was staring at the horizon, lost in thought. Thank you for what you did yesterday, he said suddenly without looking at her. For what? Chloe asked, confused. For bringing your son. He reminded me of something I had forgotten. Chloe smiled softly. And what was that? Arthur finally looked at her. That there's still beauty, even when everything seems lost. Let's play a little game with those who only read the comments. Type pizza in the comments. Only those who make it this far will understand. Now, let's continue the story. Chloe walked into the kitchen early in the morning and found Lucy preparing coffee. Despite the housekeeper's calm demeanor, Chloe felt a growing heaviness in the mansion's atmosphere. The note from the previous day was still on her mind, but she decided not to bring it up. There was work to be done. Good morning, Lucy said, handing Chloe a mug. Good morning, Chloe replied, taking a sip of the hot coffee. Lucy observed her for a moment before speaking. You seem tense. Is something wrong? Chloe hesitated. It's nothing, just my own worries. Lucy didn't press further, but Chloe knew the housekeeper noticed more than she let on. Chloe spent the morning tidying Arthur's room. He seemed quieter than usual, something Chloe now recognized as a sign he was deep in thought. As she straightened his bed, he watched her for a few seconds before finally speaking. "Did you get another note?" Arthur asked, his tone direct and unexpected. Chloe froze for a moment and turned to face him. "How do you know about that?" Arthur shrugged. "Lucy mentioned it to me. I thought you would have told me." Chloe sighed, feeling the weight of his gaze. "I didn't think it was relevant. It's just someone trying to scare me." Arthur tilted his head slightly. "Do you think that's something you should ignore?" "I don't want to cause any trouble," Chloe replied firmly. Arthur chuckled softly, though there was no humor in his tone. "Trouble already exists in this house, Chloe, and you're not responsible for it." Chloe didn't know how to respond. It felt like Arthur was referring to more than just the note. At lunch, Evelyn walked into the dining room with measured steps, holding an envelope. She cast a quick glance at Chloe before sitting beside Arthur and handing him the envelope with a forced smile. "Arthur, I brought some documents for you to sign. Just some adjustments to the property management." Arthur looked at the envelope but didn't take it immediately. "Documents, Evelyn? Now?" "It's important," she insisted, though her tone carried a hint of anxiety. From a distance, Chloe noticed Evelyn's unease. Something about the interaction seemed off. Arthur finally took the envelope but didn't open it. Instead, he set it aside and looked directly at Evelyn. "Why don't we discuss this later? For now, I'd prefer to have lunch." Evelyn smiled, but it was clear she wasn't pleased. Later, as Chloe prepared Arthur's afternoon tea, Lucas called again. Her son's cheerful voice was always a welcome relief amid the tension. "Mommy, today I made a drawing of you and the man in the chair," Lucas said excitedly. "Really? I can't wait to see it when I get home," Chloe replied with a smile. "Are you happy at work, Mommy?" Lucas asked, his voice full of innocence. Chloe hesitated. "I am, sweetheart. I'm doing this for us." After hanging up, Chloe felt a lump in her throat. Lucas was her strength, but she knew she had to shield him from the weight of her challenges. In the early afternoon, Chloe found Arthur in the library. He was examining the envelope Evelyn had brought earlier, but seemed more lost in his thoughts than focused on the documents. "She's always trying to control everything," Arthur commented, more to himself than to Chloe. "Oh?" Chloe asked hesitantly. "Evelyn," Arthur replied, his tone a mix of exhaustion and irritation. "She acts like she's helping, but she's only interested in what she can take from me." Chloe remained silent, but Arthur continued. "You know, before the accident, I thought I understood people. I thought I knew who was loyal and who was just here for their own gain." "And now?" Chloe asked gently. "Now I see things for what they really are. The accident wasn't what broke me, Chloe. It was the people around me." Chloe felt the weight of his words. She could sense that beneath Arthur's bitterness lay a deep pain, and that he was beginning to trust her enough to reveal it. Later, while tidying the living room, Chloe heard hurried footsteps in the hallway. Evelyn entered abruptly, her eyes fixed on Chloe. "You have something that belongs to me," Evelyn said, her voice low but laced with threat. "I don't know what you're talking about," Chloe replied, trying to stay calm. "Don't play innocent," Evelyn continued. "If you think you can make a place for yourself here, you're mistaken. People like you don't belong in this world." Chloe felt her heart race, but didn't let Evelyn see her insecurity. "I'm here to work, nothing more. I don't want trouble." Evelyn stepped closer, narrowing her eyes. "Then stay away from Arthur." "True. And one more thing, the next note you get might not be so friendly." Chloe felt a chill run through her, but she maintained her composure. Evelyn turned and walked out of the room, leaving Chloe alone with the echo of her threats. At the end of the day, Chloe decided to tell Arthur everything. She knew she was dealing with something bigger than she could handle alone. She found him in the garden, where he seemed calm, gazing at the evening sky. "I need to talk to you," Chloe said, approaching him. Arthur looked at her, clearly noting the seriousness in her voice. "What is it?" Chloe hesitated for a moment before recounting everything: the notes, Evelyn's threats, and their confrontation in the living room. Arthur listened in silence, but his expression hardened with each word. When she finished, he finally spoke. "Evelyn has always been good at manipulating people, but with me, that ends now." "What are you going to do?" Chloe asked, worried. Arthur looked at her, his voice filled with determination. "I'll handle it my way. But know this, Chloe. While you're here, you're under my protection. Don't let Evelyn intimidate you." Since her confrontation with Evelyn the previous night, Chloe felt a heavy tension in the air. Every glance and movement seemed to carry more weight. She decided to follow her routine as usual, knowing Arthur was also aware of the situation. As she prepared Arthur's bath equipment, she noticed he was quieter than usual. It wasn't his usual cold silence, but something more reflective. "Are you all right, sir?" Chloe asked as she adjusted the shower bench. Arthur looked at her, his eyes narrowing slightly. "You always ask that, don't you?" "It's part of the job," she replied with a gentle smile. He chuckled briefly, but this time there was no irony in his laughter. "I'm thinking, have you ever believed you could do something impossible?" The question caught her off guard. Chloe thought for a moment before answering. "Yes, many times, and in some of those times I actually did." Arthur nodded, as if absorbing her words. "Maybe I should try too." That morning's bath was different. Arthur seemed more cooperative, allowing Chloe to assist him without his usual sharp remarks. When she finished, he looked at her in a way that made her pause. "Do you believe I could stand up one day?" he asked, with a vulnerability Chloe had never seen before. "I believe you can do anything, as long as you're willing to try," she replied sincerely. Arthur didn't respond, but his gaze lingered on her for a few moments before he turned his wheelchair and left the bathroom. Later that morning, Arthur asked Chloe to meet him in the physical therapy room, a space he rarely used. The room was equipped with parallel bars, weights, and other rehabilitation tools. "I want to try something," he said, positioning his wheelchair near the bars. Chloe was surprised but immediately moved closer, ready to assist. "Are you sure, sir? I don't want you to get hurt." "I'm already hurt," Arthur replied. What more could happen? He began positioning his hands on the bars, his arms trembling with the effort. Chloe stepped in, lightly supporting his back. Every movement seemed like a battle, but Arthur didn't give up. After several moments of intense effort, he managed to lift his torso slightly. It was brief, but it was enough for him to feel something different. "I felt it," he said, breathless. "For a moment, I felt it." Chloe smiled, her eyes shining. "That's amazing, sir. This is just the beginning." Arthur looked at her, his face marked by strain but also by a glimmer of hope. As Chloe helped him back into his wheelchair, Evelyn entered the room, clearly irritated. "What's going on here?" she asked, crossing her arms. Arthur raised his eyes to her, his expression now firm. "I'm trying to take back what's mine, something you never believed I could do." Evelyn scoffed, turning her attention to Chloe. "Is this your idea? Let me guess. You think you can save the world, don't you?" "This was Mr. Foster's idea," Chloe replied calmly, "and he's making incredible progress." Evelyn let out a bitter laugh. "Progress? He can't even stand on his own. This isn't progress, it's delusion." Arthur interrupted before Chloe could respond. "Enough, Evelyn. I'm tired of hearing you tear everything down. You're not here to help me. You're here for yourself." Evelyn remained silent for a moment, surprised by the firmness in Arthur's voice, but instead of backing down, she cast one final look of disdain before leaving the room. Later, as Chloe prepared lunch, Lucas called again. His cheerful voice was a balm after the tension of the morning. "Mommy, today I drew a picture of a strong man. It's you and the man in the chair together," Lucas said proudly. Chloe laughed. "Really? I can't wait to see it. Are you behaving?" "Yes, Mommy, but I miss you," he said in a softer tone. "I miss you too, my love. But we'll be together soon, I promise." After hanging up, Chloe felt tears well up in her eyes. Lucas was her strength, but each day apart felt harder than the last. In the afternoon, Chloe found Arthur in the garden. He seemed calmer, gazing at the horizon with a contemplative expression. "Thank you for what you did today," he said without looking at her. "You're the one who did it, see you," Chloe replied. Arthur chuckled lightly. "You have a gift, Chloe. You make people believe in themselves." "It's the least I can do," she said, sitting down beside him. Arthur was silent for a moment before speaking again. "Have you ever thought that maybe you're here for a bigger reason?" Chloe frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "Maybe you're not just here to work. Maybe it's something more." Chloe didn't know how to respond. There was something in Arthur's tone that made her think he was talking about something far deeper than just employment. At the end of the day, as Chloe finished her tasks, Lucy approached her. "I heard what happened in the therapy room. Did Arthur really try to stand up?" Lucy asked, visibly surprised. "Yes, and he managed for a moment," Chloe replied. Lucy shook her head, clearly impressed. "He's never tried that before. I think you're really making a difference." Chloe smiled but said nothing. She knew she was only beginning to understand the impact she was having and that the journey was far from over. The morning began with heavy clouds in the sky, a sign of the tension building inside the mansion. Chloe knew Evelyn wouldn't take the confrontation from the previous day lightly, but she was determined to move forward. Arthur's progress was her priority, and she clung to each small victory as proof that it was all worth it. While preparing breakfast, Lucy walked into the kitchen, holding an envelope with a worried expression. "Another note," Lucy said, handing it to Chloe. Chloe opened the envelope carefully, and the short message sent a chill through her. "Leave before it's too late." Lucy shook her head. "This is getting dangerous. You need to tell Mr. Foster." Chloe hesitated but knew Lucy was right. It was time to face the situation head-on. Later, Chloe found Arthur in the library, as usual, flipping through a book that didn't seem to hold his attention. "Sir," she began, approaching with the note in hand. "We need to talk." Arthur looked at her, then at the note she handed him. His eyes narrowed as he read the words. "Evelyn," he muttered, more to himself than to Chloe. "We don't know for sure that it's her," Chloe said, trying to stay calm. Arthur tossed the note onto the table. "We don't need to be sure. This is her style. Hints, manipulation. She wants to control everything." "But why? What does she gain from this?" Chloe asked. Arthur stared at her for a moment before answering. "Money, power, everything she's ever wanted, and everything she thinks she might lose." A chill ran down Chloe's spine. "What should we do?" Arthur gave a faint smile, but his eyes were cold. "Leave it to me. She's crossed the line." In the early afternoon, Arthur asked Chloe to join him in the physical therapy room. He seemed determined, as if the note had ignited a new fire within him. "Today, we're trying again," he said, positioning his wheelchair beside the parallel bars. Chloe helped him prepare, watching the determination on his face. He placed his hands on the bars and began to lift himself. His arms trembled with effort, but he didn't give up. "You can do it, sir," Chloe encouraged, her voice calm but steady. Arthur managed to lift his body higher than before, his legs still immobile, but his torso supported by his arms. It was a small triumph, but the smile on his face showed that, to him, it meant much more. "I didn't think I could do that," he admitted, breathing heavily. "Now you know you can," Chloe replied, smiling. As she helped Arthur settle back into his wheelchair, Evelyn entered the room, as if waiting for the perfect moment to interrupt. "More useless attempts?" she remarked with a sarcastic smile. Arthur stared at her firmly. "If you think this is so pointless, why are you still here?" Evelyn laughed, but the sound was far from pleasant. "I'm here to make sure you don't destroy yourself with these foolish ideas. Someone has to manage what you can't anymore." "Is that what you call managing?" Arthur countered, his voice full of frustration. "Manipulating, sabotaging? Is that what you do?" Evelyn crossed her arms, her smile fading. "I do what's necessary." Arthur took a deep breath, but his posture remained rigid. "Consider yourself warned, Evelyn. I won't tolerate this behavior anymore." Evelyn left the room without another word, but Chloe could tell the battle was far from over. Later in the afternoon, Chloe was in the kitchen when Lucas called again. His cheerful voice was a welcome relief after the day's tension. "Mommy, I saw a rainbow today. Have you seen one there?" "Not today, but I hope to see one soon," Chloe replied, smiling. Lucas paused before asking, "Are you okay, Mommy? You sound tired." "I'm fine, my love. Just a little busy, but don't worry, I'm taking care of everything." After hanging up, Chloe felt the ache of missing him grow stronger. Lucas was her greatest motivation, but being away from him was a constant weight. Later that night, Arthur asked Chloe to meet him in the library again. He was more serious than usual, as if deep in thought. "Chloe," he began, "have you ever wondered why I'm still here? Why I keep trying?" "Because you believe there's still something worth reaching for," Chloe answered without hesitation. Arthur smiled faintly. "Maybe you're right. But until now, I thought I was doing it alone. Now I'm starting to think I might need help." "There's no shame in that, sir. We all need help sometimes, Chloe replied. Arthur looked at her for a long moment before speaking again. Have you ever thought that maybe it's not just about me? That maybe you're here for a bigger reason? Chloe didn't respond but felt the weight of his words settle over her. The next morning, as Chloe prepared breakfast, Lucy entered the kitchen holding an envelope. Arthur asked me to give this to you, Lucy said with a subtle smile. Chloe opened the envelope and found a handwritten note. Thank you for believing in me. Let's keep going. She smiled, feeling a wave of hope. Arthur was changing, and she knew that, in some way, she was part of that change. The day started peacefully, but Chloe knew the mansion's calm was always deceptive. Arthur seemed more motivated after his small progress in the therapy room, and it affected the entire atmosphere. Even Lucy mentioned how Arthur was less rigid in his interactions, something everyone noticed. As Chloe tidied the living room, she was startled by a loud noise coming from Arthur's office. She hesitated before approaching, and when she opened the door, found Arthur sitting in his wheelchair, staring furiously at a pile of papers on his desk. What happened, sir? Chloe asked cautiously. Arthur held up one of the documents, waving it in the air. Evelyn, she's trying to take control of part of my properties. Chloe remained silent, her mind racing. She knew Evelyn had ambitions, but hadn't imagined they went this far. Is there anything I can do to help? She asked hesitantly. Arthur sighed, placing the document back on the desk. I'm already handling it, but thank you for asking. Despite his firm response, Chloe could see the situation was affecting him more than he let on. At lunch, Evelyn entered the dining room, as always elegant and composed. She seemed oblivious to the tension hanging over the house. Arthur, have you reconsidered my proposal about the investments? She asked casually as she sat at the table. Arthur stared at her with a dangerously calm expression. No, and I suggest you stop trying to force your will. You won't win this battle. Evelyn laughed softly, but there was a hint of nervousness in her voice. I only want what's best for you, and for us. Chloe, serving the table, noticed the exchange of glances between them. Evelyn seemed determined to maintain her facade, but Arthur was no longer willing to play her game. After lunch, Arthur asked Chloe to join him in the garden. The day was sunny, and he seemed eager to enjoy the outdoors. Do you think people can change? He asked suddenly, watching the flowers. Chloe thought for a moment before answering. I think they can, but it takes willingness and courage. Arthur nodded slowly. And what if they don't have that? What if they'd rather destroy everything than try to change? Chloe looked at him, realizing he was talking about Evelyn. I think, in that case, change only happens when people lose control. Maybe that's what they need to see things differently. Arthur remained silent, but his hands tightened slightly on the armrests of his chair. Later, as Chloe cleaned the library, Lucas called again. He sounded more cheerful than usual, bringing a smile to her face. Mommy, today I played doctor with Anna. She said I'm great at taking care of people. You're great at everything, my love, Chloe replied, laughing. Lucas paused before asking, when can I visit you at the mansion? I want to see the flowers you talked about. Soon, sweetheart. I promise we'll plan it, Chloe said, feeling her heart ache. After hanging up, she stared at the phone for a few moments, trying to hold back her emotions. Lucas was her greatest motivation, but the distance was becoming harder to bear. Later that afternoon, Chloe found Lucy in the kitchen. The housekeeper looked worried, and Chloe noticed she was holding an envelope. I received this today. I think you need to see it, Lucy said, handing the envelope to Chloe. When she opened it, Chloe found another threatening note. You're digging your own grave. Leave before it's too late. A chill ran down Chloe's spine, but her determination only grew. She knew Evelyn was behind it, but she refused to let it intimidate her. I'm not going anywhere, Chloe said firmly, putting the note away. Lucy nodded, but her expression remained concerned. Be careful, Chloe. Evelyn is dangerous. Later that evening, Arthur asked Chloe to meet him in the office. He was looking at the same pile of papers he had reviewed earlier, but his expression was now one of focus rather than anger. You asked me earlier how you could help, he began as Chloe approached. Yes, sir, she replied, waiting for him to continue. Arthur held out one of the documents and handed it to her. I want you to read this. Tell me what you think. Chloe took the paper and began reading. It was a proposal for asset transfers, clearly manipulated to benefit Evelyn. When she finished, she looked at Arthur. "This is a blatant attempt to take control," Chloe said bluntly. Arthur gave a bitter smile. "Exactly. And that's why I need people like you around, someone who sees things for what they really are." Chloe felt a wave of pride, but she also knew this meant the tension in the house was far from over. The next morning, Evelyn was visibly more aggressive. She stormed into the living room where Chloe was assisting Arthur, casting a sharp glare. "Arthur, we need to talk. Now," she said, barely hiding her irritation. Arthur looked at her, his expression calm and unyielding. "If this is about the documents, I've already made my decision." Evelyn crossed her arms. "You're making a mistake, and it's all because of her," she said, pointing at Chloe. Chloe stood still, but Arthur immediately intervened. "Don't you dare blame her for your own failures, Evelyn. She has nothing to do with this." Evelyn seemed surprised by his response, but quickly composed herself. "You'll regret this, Arthur. I guarantee it." She stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. The next morning, Chloe was finishing organizing the kitchen utensils when Lucy rushed in. There was something in her expression that put Chloe on edge. "Arthur asked you to go to the office. He wants to discuss something important," Lucy said, almost whispering. Chloe nodded and quickly made her way to the office, where she found Arthur sitting in his wheelchair, a stack of papers on the desk. He looked more serious than ever. "Come in, Chloe," he said, gesturing for her to sit. Chloe obeyed, taking a seat beside the desk. "What's going on, sir?" Arthur ran his hand over the papers, organizing them into a neat stack before finally speaking. "I've discovered something Evelyn's been hiding, something that could change everything." Chloe frowned. "What exactly?" Arthur handed her one of the documents. "These are financial records. Evelyn diverted funds from one of the properties she manages in my name. Not only that, but she also lied about the value of the assets, manipulating the profits." Chloe read through the documents, feeling a knot form in her stomach. "This is serious. What do you plan to do?" Arthur looked at her, his expression resolute. "I confronted her last night. She denied everything as expected. But now I have enough evidence to remove her from any position of influence here." "And does she know this?" Chloe asked. "She knows. And that's why I'm worried about what she might do next," Arthur replied. Chloe felt the weight of his words. Evelyn was cornered, and people like her were the most dangerous. Later, Chloe was assisting Arthur with his physical therapy routine. He seemed more determined than ever, putting all his effort into every movement. "I want to see how far I can go today," he said, positioning his hands on the parallel bars. Chloe stood by his side, ready to help. "Take it slow, sir. One step at a time." Arthur began to lift himself, his arms trembling with the effort. This time, he managed to stay upright longer before returning to his chair. "You're surpassing yourself, sir. This is incredible," Chloe said, smiling. Arthur looked at her, sweat dripping down his forehead. "You're helping me more than you realize, Chloe. I wouldn't say this easily, but I think I need you here." Chloe was surprised by his sincerity, but didn't know how to respond. She simply smiled and continued helping him get comfortable again. In the afternoon, Evelyn entered the dining room while Chloe was setting the table. She looked visibly tense, and the glare she directed at Chloe was full of hostility. "Do you really think you have a future here?" Evelyn asked with disdain. Chloe stopped what she was doing and met her gaze. "I'm here to work. I'm not looking for conflict." Evelyn let out a short, harsh laugh. "Conflict? You've already created one. Arthur is against me because of you." "Arthur is against you because you tried to betray him," Chloe replied calmly but firmly. Evelyn stepped closer, dangerously near. "Do you think you can stand up to me? People like you don't belong in this world. I will destroy you." Before Chloe could respond, Arthur entered the room. He observed the scene for a moment before speaking. "That's enough, Evelyn. This has gone too far," he said firmly. Evelyn turned to him, surprised. "Arthur, don't believe what she says. I only want what's best for you." Arthur shook his head. "The best for me? You mean the best for you? I've seen enough, Evelyn. You no longer have a place in this house." Evelyn stood frozen for a moment before laughing bitterly. "You think you can get rid of me that easily? I know things that could destroy you." Arthur remained unfazed. "Do whatever you want. but know that anything you try against me will only reflect who you truly are." Evelyn stormed out of the room, leaving Chloe and Arthur alone. "Thank you for defending me, sir," Chloe said, still a bit tense. "I didn't do it for you, Chloe. I did it for myself. It's time I started standing up for myself too," he replied. Later that night, Chloe spoke to Lucas on the phone again. His voice was a welcome relief amidst the day's chaos. "Mommy, today I drew a big house with flowers in the garden. Does it look like the mansion?" "Yes, it looks a lot like it," Chloe said, laughing. "And the man in the chair? Is he walking?" Lucas asked. "He's trying, my love, and he's making great progress," Chloe replied, feeling proud. After hanging up, Chloe reflected on Lucas's words. His simple way of seeing the world was a reminder of why she was there, facing everything. The next day, Evelyn became even more aggressive. She avoided Arthur but made sure to confront Chloe whenever she had the chance. While Chloe was organizing the kitchen cabinets, Evelyn entered abruptly, arms crossed. "You should leave before things get worse," Evelyn said in a threatening tone. Chloe ignored her and continued her work. "I warned you," Evelyn continued. "You'll regret coming here." "I didn't come here to fight with you, Evelyn. I'm here to work and to help Mr. Foster," Chloe said, trying to stay calm. Evelyn stepped closer, but before she could say anything, Lucy appeared at the door. "Is everything all right here?" Lucy asked, casting a sharp look at Evelyn. Evelyn didn't respond. She simply left the kitchen, visibly frustrated. At the end of the day, Arthur asked Chloe to meet him in the office again. He seemed more relaxed, as though a difficult decision had finally been made. "Chloe, I want to thank you for everything you've done for me. I know it's not easy dealing with Evelyn, and with me," he said, giving her a faint smile. "It's my job, sir, and it's a privilege to see you making progress," Chloe replied. Arthur shook his head. "It's more than that. You've shown me that there's something more. That maybe I still have something worth fighting for." Chloe felt the impact of his words. For the first time, she saw Arthur not as a bitter man, but as someone beginning to rebuild himself. The morning began with a different energy in the mansion. There was tension in the air, but at the same time, a sense of imminent change. As Chloe prepared breakfast, she tried to organize her thoughts about everything that had happened over the past few days. Evelyn remained a threatening presence, but Arthur was more determined than ever to stand up to her. Lucy entered the kitchen as Chloe finished arranging the tray. "Have you heard what Evelyn is planning?" Lucy asked, her tone filled with concern. Chloe paused and looked at her. "No. What is she up to now?" Lucy sighed, crossing her arms. "She's been talking to some of Arthur's lawyers and seems to be trying to gain their support to challenge his ability to make decisions about his own business." A chill ran down Chloe's spine. Is that even possible? Not without substantial evidence, but Evelyn is cunning. If she manipulates the right people, she could make things very difficult for him. Lucy explained. Chloe pressed her lips together, feeling her worry grow. "Arthur needs to know about this." Lucy nodded. "You should be the one to tell him. He trusts you." Later, Chloe found Arthur in the garden, observing the flowers under the morning sun. He seemed calmer than usual, but Chloe knew that this moment of peace was only temporary. "Mr. Foster, may I speak with you?" she asked, approaching him. Arthur turned his chair to face her. "Of course. What is it?" Chloe explained what Lucy had told her about Evelyn and her plans. As she spoke, she saw Arthur's expression harden, his eyes growing colder with every word. "She's really gone that far," he said, more to himself than to Chloe. "We need to act before she gets anywhere," Chloe insisted. Arthur nodded, his jaw tightening. "I've been expecting this. I have something prepared, but it will require patience. She needs to make her final mistake before I can expose her completely." Chloe hesitated. "What if she tries something before that?" Arthur looked at her directly, his voice steady. "Then we'll be ready." That afternoon, Arthur asked Chloe to join him in the physical therapy room. He seemed resolute, as if he were channeling his frustration into physical effort. "Let's play a little game for those who only read the comments. Type Coca-Cola in the comments. Only those who've made it this far will understand. Now, let's continue the story. Today, I'm going to try standing up again," he said, positioning his chair beside the parallel bars. Chloe moved closer, ready to assist. "Take it slow, sir. One step at a time. Arthur began to lift himself, using all the strength in his arms. He managed to partially stand, his muscles trembling with the effort. Chloe's heart raced as she supported him, offering encouragement. "You're doing amazing, sir," she said enthusiastically. Arthur remained upright for a few seconds before returning to his chair, exhausted but satisfied. He was breathing heavily, but a faint smile appeared on his face. "I felt something in my legs," he said, breathless. Chloe smiled. "That's huge progress. Every small step counts." Arthur looked at her, his gaze softer than usual. "You've been part of this, Chloe. Thank you." After the session, as Chloe helped Arthur settle back into his chair, Evelyn entered the room. She stopped in the doorway, watching them with a disdainful expression. "Another little performance?" she said, crossing her arms. Arthur turned to face her, his expression now firm. "If you're here to criticize Evelyn, I suggest you leave." Evelyn let out a short laugh. "I'm just stating the truth, Arthur. You're deluding yourself. And she said, pointing at Chloe, is just feeding into it." Chloe stayed silent, but Arthur immediately responded. "What Chloe is doing is something you never did, helping me believe in myself. And that's something no one can take away from me." Evelyn narrowed her eyes but didn't reply. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Later that night, Chloe was in the kitchen organizing the cabinets when Lucas called. Her son's cheerful voice was a relief after the tense day. "Mommy, today I drew a picture of you and the man in the chair. He's walking in the drawing," Lucas said excitedly. Chloe laughed. "Really? I can't wait to see it. Are you behaving?" "Yes, but I miss you," Lucas said, his voice softening. "I miss you too, my love. But we'll be together soon, I promise," Chloe said, feeling her throat tighten with emotion. After hanging up, Chloe stood still for a few moments, holding the phone. Lucas was her greatest motivation, and she knew that every effort she made in the mansion was for him. The next morning, Arthur asked Chloe to join him in the library again. He was flipping through a set of documents, his expression focused. "I have something important to tell you," he began without looking at her. "I'm listening, sir," Chloe replied, curious. Arthur closed the folder of documents and finally looked at her. "I'm going to confront Evelyn once and for all, but you should know this might change a lot of things here." Chloe frowned. "What do you mean?" Arthur took a deep breath. "If things spiral out of control, you might become a target too. I need to know if you're ready to handle that." Chloe hesitated for a moment before responding. "I'm here for a reason, sir, and I'm not giving up now." Arthur gave a small smile, nodding. "I knew you'd say that." The morning began with palpable tension in the mansion. Chloe knew Arthur was preparing to face Evelyn, but what concerned her most was what Evelyn might be planning. Their interactions had grown more intense in recent days, and Chloe had a feeling something big was about to happen. As she prepared breakfast, Lucy hurried into the kitchen holding an envelope. Her worried expression made Chloe put down what she was doing immediately. "Another note?" Chloe asked, already expecting the answer. Lucy nodded, handing her the envelope. Chloe opened it and read the short, threatening words. "If you think you're going to win, you're very mistaken." "She's desperate," Lucy said, crossing her arms. Chloe took a deep breath, folded the note, and slipped it into her pocket. "Desperation can be dangerous, but I'm ready." Later that morning, Arthur summoned Chloe to his office. He was seated in his wheelchair, a laptop open and several documents spread across the desk. When Chloe entered, he gestured for her to sit. "I received news from my lawyers," he began. "Evelyn tried to transfer a significant amount of money to an offshore account. They blocked the transaction, but it proves she's willing to do anything." Chloe frowned. "What are you going to do now?" Arthur closed the laptop, his expression firm. "Today is the day. I'm going to confront her with the evidence and demand that she leave my life for good." "And if she refuses?" Chloe asked, worried. "Then I'll take legal action," Arthur replied. "But I want to try resolving this without a scandal, at least for now." The confrontation took place in the living room, where Arthur called Evelyn for an urgent discussion. Chloe stayed in the kitchen, but the tension was so thick it seemed to seep through the walls. "Why are you doing this, Evelyn?" Arthur began, his voice controlled but firm. "Doing what?" Evelyn replied, her voice laced with false innocence. Arthur placed the documents on the table. "You know exactly what. Embezzling funds, trying to manipulate my business. I won't tolerate this. Evelyn laughed, but there was a nervous edge to her voice. Do you really think you can accuse me of this? You have no proof. I have all the proof I need, Arthur replied, pointing to the documents, and if necessary, I'll take them to court. The room went silent for a moment before Evelyn erupted. You're accusing me of betrayal? After everything I've done for you? I was here when no one else was. You were here because you thought you could benefit, Arthur retorted, but that ends now. From a distance, Chloe listened, hearing their voices echo through the house. When the door abruptly opened, Evelyn stormed out, her face flushed with anger. She shot Chloe a withering glare before disappearing down the hallway. Arthur appeared shortly after, visibly shaken. She's leaving, he said, his voice softer now. She agreed to it? Chloe asked, surprised. Not exactly, but she knows she's lost. The lawyers will handle the rest, he replied. Chloe felt a wave of relief, though she knew the battle wasn't entirely over. That afternoon, as Chloe helped Arthur with his physical therapy, he seemed more focused than ever. Every movement, no matter how small, felt charged with meaning. You seem more determined today, Chloe commented as she adjusted the equipment. That's because I know I'm back in control, Arthur replied, and I want to keep it that way. He began lifting himself on the parallel bars, his arms trembling with the effort. Chloe encouraged him every step of the way until he managed to hold himself up longer than ever before. That's incredible, sir, Chloe exclaimed, her smile wide. Arthur looked at her, breathless, but with a satisfied smile. I never would have gotten here without you, Chloe. Thank you. Chloe felt her heart race but maintained her composure. It's all your effort, sir. I'm just here to help. Later, as Chloe organized the library, Lucas called again. His cheerful voice was a balm amidst the chaos of recent days. Mommy, when can I visit you? I want to see the man in the chair, Lucas said excitedly. Soon, my love. I promise we'll plan it, Chloe replied, laughing. Lucas paused before asking, is he walking yet? He's making great progress, sweetheart. He's very strong, Chloe said, feeling proud. After hanging up, Chloe reflected on Lucas's words. His simple, pure faith was something she knew Arthur was starting to rediscover as well. At the end of the day, Arthur asked Chloe to join him in the garden. The sky was clear, painted in soft shades of orange and pink, creating a serene atmosphere. Today was an important day, Arthur said, gazing at the horizon. It truly was. Sir, you handled everything remarkably well, Chloe replied. Arthur looked at her, his expression softer than she had ever seen. You're part of this, Chloe. I don't think I would have come this far without you here. Chloe felt warmth rise in her chest, but before she could respond, Arthur continued. There's something I need to say, he began, hesitating for a moment. I feel like I'm changing, and I think you're the reason for that. Chloe stayed silent, surprised by his words. She had noticed something different about Arthur, but hearing it from him left her momentarily speechless. Thank you for not giving up on me, he said, with a shy smile. Chloe finally found her voice. I would never give up on you, Arthur, because I know there's so much more to you than even you realize. The days that followed brought definitive changes to the mansion. Evelyn left abruptly, leaving behind a trail of resentment and bitterness that Arthur seemed determined to overcome. Despite everything, her absence brought new energy to the house, and the mansion felt less stifling. Arthur was more focused than ever. His physical therapy sessions were now daily, and he insisted on pushing his limits. Chloe was by his side at every step, encouraging and supporting him. One sunny afternoon, Arthur achieved what once seemed impossible. He stood up from the parallel bars without Chloe's help. It was only for a few seconds, but it was enough to bring tears to her eyes. You did it, Chloe exclaimed, beaming. Arthur, breathless but radiant, replied, We did it. This is as much your victory as it is mine. She laughed, quickly wiping her tears. You're surpassing everyone's expectations, sir. Arthur looked at her deeply, his expression holding something more than gratitude, including my own, but I had you to remind me it was still possible. That night, as Chloe prepared for bed, Lucas called. Her son's cheerful voice lit up her fatigue. Mommy, I made another drawing today. It's you, me, and the man in the chair. We're all at a park. Chloe laughed, imagining the simple yet meaningful drawing. I can't wait to see it, my love. We're so close to making that happen. Will he walk, Mommy? Lucas asked with the innocence only a child could have. Yes, my love. He's getting closer every day, Chloe said, feeling the truth in her words. After hanging up, Chloe thought about how her journey in the mansion had not only changed Arthur, but also herself. The next morning, Arthur called Chloe to the office. He was sitting in his wheelchair, an envelope resting on the desk in front of him. "Chloe, you've been more than an employee to me," he began, his voice steady but sincere. She felt her heart race. "I've just done what I thought was right, sir." Arthur gave a slight smile. "And that's more than most people would do. I want you to know that you've changed my life, and I want to change yours as well." He slid the envelope toward her. "Open it." Chloe hesitated before opening it. Inside, she found a formal contract offering her a permanent position as his personal assistant, with a salary she had never dreamed of. "I don't know what to say," Chloe murmured, her eyes filling with tears. "Say you'll accept," Arthur said, smiling. Chloe nodded, finally letting the tears fall. "I accept. Thank you, sir." That evening, Chloe and Lucas were finally reunited at the mansion. Arthur had insisted the boy visit, and to Chloe's surprise, he had personally prepared a small gift for Lucas, a professional drawing kit. Lucas was thrilled, running to hug Arthur without hesitation. "Thank you, sir. I'm going to draw you walking," Arthur chuckled, touched by the boy's contagious energy. "And I'll work to make that happen soon. Deal?" In the following weeks, Arthur continued to dedicate himself to his recovery, but now with even greater motivation. Lucas's presence brought a sense of lightness to the mansion, and even Lucy seemed more cheerful with the new dynamic. Then one day the impossible happened. During a physical therapy session, Arthur took his first step. It was hesitant but real. Chloe watched in disbelief as Arthur, with the support of the bars, moved one leg forward. "You did it!" Chloe exclaimed, holding back tears. Arthur smiled, his eyes shining. "This is just the beginning." Months later, the mansion was filled with celebration. Arthur hosted a small gathering in the garden to celebrate his recovery and the changes in his life. Chloe and Lucas stood by his side, along with Lucy, who couldn't stop smiling. At the end of the event, Arthur did something unexpected. He took Chloe's hand and looked deeply into her eyes. "Chloe, you brought light into my life when everything was dark. You gave me reasons to believe again. And now, I want to ask if you would stay by my side, not just as my assistant, but as my wife." Chloe was speechless, but the tears in her eyes and the smile on her face were answer enough. Lucas ran to them, hugging them both tightly. "Now we're a real family." A few months later, Arthur and Chloe were married in a simple yet love-filled ceremony. Lucas, with his contagious energy, was the center of attention, while Arthur, now walking with the help of a cane, delivered an emotional speech about resilience and love. The mansion, once a place of tension and loneliness, was now full of life and laughter. And for Arthur, Chloe, and Lucas, this was just the beginning of a story filled with hope and happiness. And what about you? What did you think of Chloe and Lucas's story? Leave your opinion in the comments. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What's your score? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow all our stories. And don't forget to check out more emotional stories by clicking here on the end screen.